Alright, we have our branch laying on the ground by the Truckee River. I'm going to use the crop tool to straighten it, get it where we want it to be, and then we're going to crop it from the left side here. I want to keep that little hand on the right hand side. This is going to be where we're going to mirror it on the left. So I want to line that up so it looks good. We'll hit enter to apply the crop. Control J. We're going to duplicate our layer. Now we're going to go up to image, canvas size, and we're going to increase our canvas size. I'm going to change it to pixels. Look up above, 939. We'll type that in. We're going to add the canvas to the left. Click OK. And now we got our blank canvas on the side. I'm going to hit Control and click. We're going to make a free selection. Flip horizontal, hold down the Shift key and use the Move tool. We're going to slide it over and we're going to be able to see what our mirror image looks like there. So now we got a pretty good looking Woody going. Okay, now I'm kind of making a mistake here by using the healing brush to take some of these leaves out. I really need to do a stamp visible. Control Alt Shift E. I want to take out some of the leaves on the left hand side so it doesn't read quite as much as a mirrored image. I would probably play around with that a little more, but don't have a lot of time right now, so we're just going to do a quick and dirty one. Here's our cat's eye. We're going to make a selection around our eye. We're going to get some of that fur in there too. We can use a layer mask to refine that out a little better. We don't have to be perfect. We're going to hit Control J to put that on its own layer. Then we're going to use the Move tool again to drag that over and drop it on our Woody. Now we need to hit Control T to resize this eye and make it fit with the size that we want it there. Maybe straighten it a little. We want to get that shadow along the nose to be perfect. We want that to look like it belongs there. So we're going to take it down just a little bit more, hit enter, looking good. I'm going to zoom in. We're going to have to add a layer mask to this, and then we're going to use a soft brush using black on the layer mask to paint out the areas where we don't want it. I'm going to take out some of this fur, leave a little bit of it in because it matches nicely with the branches and the sticks. So we're going to do that there. Maybe go along the bottom, kick up the opacity a little. It's not super critical at this point. We just want to make it look like it belongs. Alright, it's starting to look pretty good. And I like that. Okay. We'll apply the layer mask. And I'm going to put a curves adjustment layer, and I'm going to clip it to that eye, so just the eye is adjusted. I'm going to pull down the midtones and the highlights just a little bit, make it look like it belongs a little more in this image. We'll do some more adjustments later. That looks good. Alright. I'm going to turn off the other layers. I'm going to duplicate our eye layer above this so we have two eye layers. And we're going to hit Control T to select the upper eye and then flip it horizontally. Hold down the Shift key and using the Move tool, we'll slide it over for the right eye. Have exactly the same size and exactly the same orientation this way. So that's a good match right there. Alright, that's looking good. Alright, we're going to zoom in. We're going to merge down the right eye so we have both eyes on the same layer. Perfect. And now we're going to add a hue saturation. This is one way to change the color of the eyes. Once you select them and you clip the eye layer, we can slide this slider and we can make all kinds of different colored eyes just using hue saturation. And then we could paint out the eyebrows and stuff on the mask. But I don't usually do that, so I just wanted to show you that technique. I usually use a brush and I set the blending mode of the brush to color, and then I hit Control and click on that layer so just the eyes are selected. Then I'll use the Alt key and I'll use the eyedropper and click on color in the actual image here. Keep my flow down low, and then I'll paint over the eyes, and it'll change the color, and it'll still maintain the gradients and the lights and the darks in there. But I can use the color to just totally change the color of anything with the brush. And by having the eyes selected like that, I don't have to worry about coloring anything else. It's just going to color where I paint with the brush, and that's it. And it won't color outside those lines. Getting it a little bit there. Now I'm going to pick a different color, for a little darker color maybe, and add a little bit of interest in there. Don't want everything all one color. That's giving us a little darkness, and it's blended in with the image more. We'll deselect the eyes so we can see what it looks like. Okay, that's looking good. We'll add an adjustment layer, curves. We'll clip it to the eyes again, and now we're going to bring down those midtones, get those shadows in there looking really nice. Send those eyes back into his head a little bit more. That looks nice. Okay, now we're going to add a new layer, a blank layer. I'm going to switch our brush to normal. We're going to take the blending mode to multiply on our new layer, our new blank layer. I'm going to switch to black. Now we're going to paint some darker shadows in where they would be we want those eyebrows overhanging those eyes. We want them to go back in the head a little bit. Keep that flow really low so we can just paint over and get it right where we want it to go. Now we're sending those eyeballs back in there. We got a nice dark shadow. That's looking real good there. Okay, now I'm going to go over here and get the dodge tool, and we're going to add some highlights. My light's going to be coming from the right hand side, so I'm going to put a little highlights on the right hand side of the eyes here. Give it a little bit of depth and dimension, and that helps a lot. Okay, let's see zoom back out. Looking pretty good. Now we're going to take a levels adjustment layer. What I'm doing here is creating my shadows. I'm going to take the whites down in the image, increase the darks, and I'm looking to make what a shadow would look like anywhere on this thing. And I'm doing that with a levels adjustment layer. Go back to our layers. I'm going to rename this shadows so I know what it is. Alright, now I'm going to invert the masks to black so none of that shows. Now using a soft white brush, I can go in and I can paint my shadows wherever I want them to be. And in this case, since my light's going to be coming from the right, I want shadows like on the left side of his nose and under his nose. Anything on the left side that goes down, we want that to be in shadow. We'll kick up the flow a little more here. Alright, that's better. Down there under his nose. Kind of want to bring focus into his face. That's where we want everybody to look. We want that gritty detail. We want to make everything that's not essential to that face go into the background. These leaves over here, those need to be brought down in value. We don't want those to be the brightest contrast. The eye tends to go to where the brightest contrast is between the darks and the lights. So we want that to be in the face. So we're going to bring that everything else down, add those shadows. Starting to get a lot more dimensionality to it. We got shadows on both sides. Just got to make sure you got them. You want the high parts highlighted and the low parts shadowed. The lights will be coming from the right. And we're getting there. I want to get these leaves over here on the right hand side. We want to tone those down too. We're going to be adding a bit of a vignette to this also, which will help tone these down even more. Right now we want to make the lighting correct, so that's what we're doing. We're making the lighting correct. Putting in the shadows, toning out areas we don't want to be jumping out at you. We'll make that brush a lot bigger, and we'll kill some of this bright down in the bottom here. Get the tonal value right. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now we're going to get our dodge tool, and we're going to start dodging out some highlights. We switch to highlights, we'll do a little zoom in here. Now remember our light's coming from the right, so we're going to add highlights to the high side on the right side of everything. His nose is, especially in this facial areas here, the eyebrows, the little hand sticking out. We want those highlights. We want that contrast. We want to really pull that eye in. So there we go on top of the eyes. It's kind of like doing a painting. You know, we're working with a photograph, but we're making it what we want it to be, and it's not that difficult. If it doesn't look right, just start over and try again. Just keep that flow level low, and you can just slowly build it up, and it'll blend in really nice that way. Alright, we got our highlights in there, looking pretty good there. Going to make an oval selection here. This is going to be to add our vignette. Center it. We'll invert the selection. Select, inverse. And we're going to do a curves adjustment to this. We're feathering this out 250 pixels. Now we're going to add our curves adjustment. I'm going to bring those midtones down and darken that outside edge some. Maybe down the highlights a little too. Not too much there. That looks good. Maybe the darks a little more. Alright, I like that. I'll go up here and we'll check it. Little eyeball, we'll turn it on and off, see the difference. Maybe cut it back a little bit with opacity so it isn't quite so much. There we go, that's looking good. Alright, now we're going to duplicate the image because I want to add an HDR effect to this. Okay, we've got the duplicate image there. We'll get rid of our eyes. We're going to flatten the duplicate because the HDR adjustment likes a flattened image anyway, so we'll just do that. And then we'll go into a image adjustments, HDR. Now we got to play around with these sliders. I haven't done a lot of this HDR toning lately. I usually use the NIC detail extractor, but you just play with these sliders, you move them way over or way back, and you'll get the effect you're after. Really the secret is kind of detail and exposure, and the highlights and gamma are the big ones. And what I'm looking for mainly is more detail and grit in the face. I'm going to apply this to a separate layer, and then I'm going to mask in the face. So I just want to add some grit and detail so our eyes are drawn into that face more. You can see you can do some wide, crazy adjustments with this thing. Exposure a little more there, and a little more highlight. You can see I slide these things all the way over, and then I get a better idea of just exactly what's going on. It's kind of like watching grass grow here, but it's fun when you're doing it. And it toned down. There we go. A little more gamma, a little more highlight. That's looking pretty good. You're getting close. Take the saturation down, make it a little more natural. Click OK. Now we're going to use Move tool, hold down the Shift key. We're going to drag this over on top of our original image. That'll automatically align everything. We're going to apply a layer mask to this, filled with black. So now you can't see our HDR toning. I'm going to take a soft white brush and I'm going to paint over just the areas where I want that HDR effect to come back in, around the eyes, a little bit around his beard and his hands, a little bit on the forehead there where there's some detail. Now we've got that important areas coming out at you, and the other areas are going back. So we've brought the focus where we want it. Okay, we turn it on and off. See the before and after. Cut down the opacity a little bit. And there you go. You've got a Woody.